Thanks for joining us today. My name is Danni Grande and I'm a partner and head of consulting here at Finura Group. And I'm here with Dipal, who is a senior consultant at Finura Group. Today we have a really special episode where we'll be talking to Worksorted, who are providing the financial planning industry with their technology solutions. We're chatting with founder Dan Fitzgerald and CEO Simon Betchley about their journey of starting and running a tech company, the gaps they saw in the market and the challenges that they faced along the way. Dan has a background in financial services of over 32 years, starting as the mail boy, as it was called back in the olden days, at a building society and working through into senior career in banking and wealth, including Zurich and MLC. And Dan's been creating financial services software for over 22 years, before Fintech was even really a thing. Worksorted has been pushing along now for 12 years. Simon's career spans 17 years in the banking and financial services industry. He actually started his career in fintech straight from uni, but had a 5-year hiatus from technology, transitioning into platform and insurance sales with Macquarie and Zurich before returning again to his real passion. Since then, Simon has completed a number of consulting projects with advice firms and other technology companies before settling in to lead the Worksorted business as CEO, a role he's held for almost 3 years now. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So we work with a range of financial planning firms, and one of the consistent pain points that comes up when we're trying to come up with recommendations and dissect what's actually happening in a business is A, managing reviews and revenue, and B, implementing effective workflow, which is easily reportable and trackable and that sort of thing, and also getting concise and impactful reporting. We looked at you guys for one of our tech roadmaps and had a few demos and picked your brains and really found a gem in terms of hitting some really specific pain points in financial advice businesses. So Dan, I've got a question for you. What inspired you to start a financial planning technology company, and what was the gap in the industry that you wanted to fill?
I was inspired by madness, I think. I'm not sure how I ended up back in it, but I'd done this before. This isn't my first rodeo in terms of building software. As you mentioned, somewhat scarily, Danny, it's been 22 years building software. Worksorted's been the last 12 or so, 13 maybe. And look, I was inspired because, having done it before, I knew that it was something I enjoyed doing. So that was probably the first and foremost point. Always good to do something that you love. And that love of software goes back, it even goes back further than the 32 years you mentioned in terms of my finance and now software career. But look, doing what you love and identifying a gap, as you said. Look, I did have back 20 years ago an interest in a financial advice firm, and so I knew that the software wasn't particularly fantastic that was delivered unto us. And so it was about building something that would work for us and potentially for others. Yeah,
awesome. I feel like, I don't know about you, when you're sort of dealing with Worksorted clients and advice businesses, we all expect technology to just work the way that we want it to work and have our business built into the technology in a reasonably bespoke way. And it's just going to work for us. That's clearly not the case. What are some of the biggest challenges, I guess, you faced when starting your company, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I didn't do was assume that everything that happened in the advice firms around me, and I've got and have had for many years some good mates in the sector, and that you obviously lean on them for information about how they operate their firms. But so I think the first thing was to not assume that what you do is what everyone else does. Sort of pick their brains early to make sure that what you're building is going to suit a market. I mean, you can't survey all of them and work out what's needed, but to go with a sample set that of similar style businesses, but just to pick up on what's going to work with them, and really then just honing in on the attributes of a firm that we could be impactful for, not to try to do everything. So whilst they may, or the financial advice market, as you're suggesting, Danny, might want software to deliver everything up to them, you can't do everything well. There's only one group in the market that thinks it does everything well as a software provider, and they shall remain nameless. But you end up with a very, very big piece of the puzzle that and you end up spread too thin. So it was a matter of focusing on what we knew were the pain points in our firm and others around us, and concentrating on those, and then building out from there. 12 years later, here we still are, still building, still having fun, still learning along the way.
Yeah, I think that's what we really love about you guys as well, is that you're not, and you're very honest and vocal about the fact that you're not trying to be all things to all people, and not trying to sit into that sort of end-to-end advice space and be the best at everything. So, you can really focus in on those pain points, which is what sort of alluding to at the beginning there, the revenue management and reviews and all those sort of things that take us so much time. Yeah, we really like that about Worksorted.
I know, I was just going to add, it was pretty apparent, with the demos we had. It just clearly shows how you've got the few areas that you've targeted, you do really well, and the focus has been there. So, we really liked what we saw.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also, obviously, being in the industry for 12 years and having a really good footprint now helps you guys, I'm assuming, to build out integrations and do those sort of things that are going to fit in with other applications that advisors might be using in their business as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what we, just picking up on your point there, Danni, about the end-to-end concept, I think a lot of the software that's come out in the last 5 or so years, probably a few more than that, has been really concentrated on that, what you might term the front end, or the client facing, that initial advice journey has been very topical for groups building new software. And I think we've stayed away from that, and quite deliberately. And yes, you're right, to the point of integration. We would prefer that we can connect up and make sure data flows as it needs to into our system. But we don't really worry too much about that kind of end-to-end initial sale, initial advice bit. We concentrate more on that ongoing advice piece. And some of that can be pretty boring, actually, from a discussional point of view. It's annual advice agreements, it's revenue management, it's disclosure, compliance. So it's not necessarily sexy, but it's kind of important and a very, very core part of all advice firms. And we believe that will remain true, whatever the change in legislation that's coming up. So, we're playing in our niche.
I've been in the industry for over 25 years now, so a bit of a veteran like yourself, Dan, and have seen lots of changes. So FSR, FOFA, the Royal Commission, now QAR, and the changes that are potentially going to come off that as well. Technology, Dan, as you say, has always been around, and obviously it's morphed and progressed over time. Simon, one for you. How has the financial planning industry changed since you came on board with Worksorted, and what sort of role do you think tech has played in those changes?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there has been a huge amount of change throughout the industry, and plenty of regulatory and legislative changes around it. It's been an interesting one for me, watching the technology focus. I guess when I started, it was very heavily focused around the production of a statement of advice and how efficient that whole process could be. As Dan sort of alluded to, I think in the more recent times, there's been very much a focus around client onboarding and engaging with clients and data collection and those sorts of things. And we've seen a flurry of new tools in that space as well. What's been fascinating, I guess, from our perspective, is as a practice management solution, as Dan said, the least sexy and maybe slightly more boring part, but nonetheless, what we consider the most important part, has sort of dipped in and out of focus. And I think there's been a massive distraction with legislation that has distracted firms from being able to focus on their business and develop and grow and drive efficiency. But it's sort of always been there in the background. And so for us, whilst, the press and the focus has certainly been on other areas of technology development, ours is sort of that core bit has stayed true. And stayed a consistent requirement for firms. I think we've quietly continued to evolve a very strong solution in a space that hasn't had a lot of focus until perhaps now, where we're starting to see that the distractions are slowly starting to trickle away, and firms, with the growing demand of advice and the exiting of a large subset of advisors, there's a huge amount of activity going on, and people really want to build scale and grow their businesses and be the best versions of themselves. So we're really excited about all the change. It always changes great for us as technology providers. It presents opportunity to build out product and functionality to solve the problems. But potentially now is an even greater time for Worksorted in our space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Dipal, you probably agree with me. Every project that we work on, the biggest pain point is implementation and that back office and what's happening in that back office 100% of the time. Definitely client onboarding, and as we sort of move to that more digital experience is becoming more important, as you say. But the back office is certainly the pain point for everybody.
Yeah, and it's the ongoing bit, right? Onboarding clients happens once. Producing statements of advice doesn't happen regularly. It again is a point in time thing, but servicing those clients, and as your client base grows and grows, becomes the greater challenge. And with all the compliance hoops that we've got to worry about, it's the most time-consuming part of operations, and can become very resource heavy. And certainly I guess we're seeing it with the inquiries that we're getting, they're very particular around that scalability and not just building scale, but also continuing to deliver an exceptional experience to clients. We want the level of engagement and the quality of engagement with clients to continue even as the business grows.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, anything to add in your experience?
I think overall, if I reflect back on my years in the game, I don't think an advice firm, the view from an advice firm has changed a hell of a lot. It's much the same, and perhaps that's a function of the kind of groups that I mix with, but I don't think so, because Worksorted's brought on and continues to bring on fresh new clients, startups doing new things, branch out businesses and so on. But fundamentally, I don't necessarily think there's been a whole lot of change in the way advice is delivered, and nor, sadly to say, do I see a lot of change in the technology that sits and supports it. And well, that's probably a good thing for us because we've been around for a while. But I feel as if the technology has not fundamentally changed the industry, nor has the industry changed much. And of course, we all now talk about the next big game, the chat GPT kind of AI gear, and that'll have an impact, but I'm not necessarily sure it's going to change conversations a whole lot that advisors are having with clients and the sort of tools that we need to provide to support them. I think it's been a slow and steady evolution, and it doesn't look a hell of a lot different from what it did 25 odd years ago when I first got involved in funds management, as it was, or financial advice.
Yeah. Do you think also, obviously a big problem that you guys solve and other advice technology providers solve is there's no real consistency with how we get data from product providers. So when it comes to revenue, for example, there's not really, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's really a standardized way that providers send you through revenue, or a standardized way that you get other data regarding portfolio information and that sort of thing from clients. And I can see obviously
no standard
agreeing
anything,
with
Danni,
me there.
no standard anything.
Yeah.
100 standards.
And Dan, I guess to your point there, we, as you're saying, we haven't really changed much or progressed much as an industry from a forward-thinking perspective when it comes to that sort of thing, because that would really help, right? If we had standardized data formats and that sort of thing. So
there's a whole lot of things that we could do to help. I'm not sure if that's a massive ticket item. Like, it's good for us that they don't exist, because we can make sense of all that content that comes through us on behalf of the advice firms. But there's probably bigger things to try. I don't think it's one that's going to be readily solved, because there's not a lot of interest from the stakeholders, the institutions that provide products and services, to really bring it together and make any particular standard. So you'd have to be a pretty big show to be able to enforce some kind of standard. Others have tried before, but I think it's a way off, unfortunately. Simo's favourite topic is the inconsistencies. He'd love to sort that one out.
If there's one thing I would. If I was the one thing I'm hell bent on is trying to find a solution for it. Data is such a contentious issue in our industry. And then, of course, as software vendors sharing data between systems, makes it's even more challenging. So yes, it is a problem that I guess the eternal optimist in me would love to solve for. I think it would be a great, it would be wonderful to provide that solution to our clients, the advice industry. I think that would just make life a hell of a lot easier. But I do share Dan's view to some degree that it's a bit of a behemoth, and getting the right stakeholders on the same page for it at the one time is a huge challenge. But pleasingly, we're not the only ones that are advocating for it. I've been chatting with a lot of other industries, figureheads, and it's certainly quite topical at the moment, which is good.
Yeah, and I guess that sort of talks to integrations and how difficult. Again, I think we sort of expect our applications to just integrate. We're used to using our iPhones or whatever it is, and everything just sort of seamlessly works really well the way that we want it. And we come into our fintech solutions, and it's a lot more complex than that. Do you want to sort of comment on integrations? It's such a topical thing as well. They need to work. We need them, but what's the issue there?
It really does. Yeah, to the degree that, I've done presentations just simply on the topic of integration and what they're all about and how they work and how they don't work. And if you even need them in the first place, it is important. And we certainly acknowledge as one of those software vendors that sharing data between systems to eradicate replication, data duplication, and to keep that data integrity is really, really important. And so that's why we invest a lot of time in making sure that integrations work, but they're two-sided, right? We need to build our API to make our system available to others, and other systems need to make their API available for the same purposes. And then we need to ensure that we are allowing data to feed in and data to be pulled out. So it's not as simple as saying, right, we've got an open API, let's go for it. Someone needs to do the actual work and build those. And so we spend quite a bit of time educating clients. It's a shame that we have to spend our time talking about these things. We wish that it would all just work, but it requires cooperations from both sides to get data seamlessly flowing in both directions. And so we continue to invest in our own API to make sure that it is as functional as possible for those that wish to look at ours. And we then cooperate, obviously, to look at other people's APIs to make sure that we can pull and push data as best we can, as automatically as we can into the relevant bits of tech. But for us, I've been able to see over the years the amount of time that our development would spend on integrations as opposed to building brand new functionality or improving current functionality, and it's certainly increased significantly in our resource that we spend in that particular area. Again, another dream of mine is for that to all be simple and seamless. And we all talk, in any other industry, there can be hundreds of integrations to a single bit of software, and whilst we don't need that many, it certainly would be something to have a lot easier for firms to just plug and play.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, often I feel like people do underestimate how much work is involved when dealing with two different data models, with integrations. So, you see a lot of new players in the market as well. It's such a key component when you're working with integrations. And I feel like often it's, you underestimate how much time's required to build a meaningful integration that works.
Yeah, and look, one of the things I feel we're fortunate about is that the functions that we've provided in our system capture quite a large amount of activity or functionality that you need in an advice firm. That pleasingly for us, we are able to limit the number of integrations that you really need. Whilst we fit in our niche and we do what we do capture a large gamut of functionality that an advice firm needs. So you don't have to plug 20 other bits of solution into us to have a functional business. We try to limit that as much as we can by producing really good functionality in our own system. And then, for the bits where we don't, and we're clear on where we play and where we don't play, we're just trying to integrate with best of breed. And I think that's really critical.
Yeah, good points. All right, Dan, you briefly touched on ChatGPT before. I wouldn't mind having a chat with you guys about AI and all the noise that is happening at the moment. Dipal, I know, has got some questions around this too. Dee?
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we all know technology is constantly evolving, and I think AI, robotics, ChatGPT, every second post in my LinkedIn feed is about ChatGPT. I'm sure it's the same for you guys. So yeah, how do you see sort of, financial planning technology evolving the next few years? Any new sort of opportunities, challenges, any plans of, how you see it working with the Worksorted offering? Be keen to hear your thoughts.
Dan, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, there's probably some. It's massive. Like this particular shift we've seen in the last few months it is big. It's here to stay, and it will be very useful to our advice industry. Exactly how that plays out, I can't be too sure. I mean, bear in mind, Simo and I are. Even though he's only been in it, 20 odd years, Simo, 15 years, still a geek of old, really. These are new things for everybody, right? And we're looking at them going, wow, we're actually, super impressed, super surprised, just as the whole world has been with some of these initiatives. And so, this is one of those things that comes along every so often, and it will have a very strong and I think beneficial impact to advice overall. I mean, we use some internal tools for collaboration as well, just between us. And I noted the other day when I uploaded a video file to this particular tool, within seconds, the whole damn thing was transcribed, and it's content. And I went, wow, I didn't expect that from that tool right now. I knew it was possible. So we're sort of all being surprised a little bit, and I think positively surprised about what that form of intelligence is delivering. Putting aside all the robotics and other things I'll need to Dipal, because I'm no expert in those spheres. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time in many respects. But from our point of view, we will see and work towards delivering and embedding those technologies into what we do as much as it makes sense to, right? And not to go and chase some other stream of our life form, because I think we'll look back in 10 years and I'm going to suggest that, just as I said before, it looks much the same as it did 20, 25 years ago. I think in 10 years, we'll still be doing the same kind of things. We'll still have advisors. We'll still have advisor clients. We'll still have conversations with them. But these sort of tools will just make lives easier. So Simon and my job is to bring those things to the table in the right way, at the right time, without lots of froth and bubble, but just let them appear in software in terms of what we offer. That's my take on it. I don't know, Simon, I'm sure you're a bit younger, more enthusiastic towards these things, but I'm quite positive on them, but maybe you see things a little bit different.
Yeah. No, look, I see sort of the opportunities on two fronts. I see, the benefits that it provides internally in the organisation, in the advice business, the efficiencies that it can drive around activity and automation and engagement. And, the natural language side of it is really exciting to me. Danni, as I was sort of saying to you before, the fact that you might be able to give instructions to your software being Worksorted for it to create documents, for it to set up automated processes, create jobs, automate, whatever. I think that's sort of that instructional side will certainly drive a greater engagement with the software. And then, the AI side of things, engagement with clients, I think is also, there's some great opportunities there. And I can certainly see the way it's going to be used in more intelligent chatbots and those sorts of things. We are a relationships, profession. We talk to people and we will continue to talk to people. So I don't see it as an entire replacement in any way, shape or form. But in parts, where there might be direct to consumer or scaled advice and those sorts of things, having more intelligent systems that, end clients can engage with to get greater outcomes and to be happier clients, I think, is a brilliant one. We're looking at informally sort of a range of ways that it can be used. I still think it's got a way to go before it's going to be applied in our software and heavily in our industry. It's a bit like any of these sorts of things. There's a lot of excitement around it, a lot of flurry, but there's a bit to settle down in around it and how it's going to be applied first, before we jump headlong into it. So yeah, certainly watching that space, and it sits now on my desktop and is used all the time. And to your social media feeds, who's even writing them anymore, right? It could be GPT that's writing all of those posts that you're reading these days. So it's really cool to see how it's being used and adopted just so quickly.
But you still sort of need a human, don't you, to actually give the right information to it, to actually come up with that LinkedIn post. It's not going to just read your mind, I guess. I sort of have a bit of an existential crisis about the whole thing sometimes, but like you guys, we're sort of using it at Finura. We're sort of figuring out how we can use it to further help our clients as well. And financial advice, reaching the consumer is obviously a really important thing for our industry. We don't have enough of advisors to reach the amount of consumers that need advice. So, hopefully this is a really good outcome, or, there's some really cool things we can do to actually reach that end consumer, which would be ideal. But I'm with you. I think we sort of need to be careful in what we're feeding feeding it at the moment. We need to think about privacy and,
your data,
there is still
security.
legislation out there that exists, data security for your clients, all those sort of things. I feel like, maybe we're just going full throttle into it and maybe not thinking about those things very carefully at the moment. And I think it's really important we sort of get some perhaps guidelines in place, and, hopefully, at some point the regulator will step in and give us some regulation around it as well.
Yeah, agreed.
And that seems to be the sentiment from those at the forefront of developing this technology globally. The sentiment still seems to be that this is all really cool, but we need to get in front of it with regulation and legislation to have the right controls in front of it, so that we get the right outcomes and the best outcomes for it. So it is really exciting, and I hope we see some really positive outcomes from it. So I'm sure we will.
Definitely. The one issue we've got in our industry is advisors wanting to become technology developers, or at least dipping their toes into creating tech. As founders of a successful financial planning technology company, you've been around for 12 years. What advice would you give to advisors who are interested in developing their own technology solutions? Dan? What do you think?
I guess in some sense I have to encourage people to do it because I did it. I mean, whilst I wasn't an advisor, my wife at the time had advice, but I'd done it before and have a passion for software. So in some cases I can't say.
Recall you referring to yourself as mad though, Dan.
Yeah, well,
madness.
We need to encourage entrepreneurship, right? Particularly in Australia, but it's, I guess, go into it. Maybe talk to some people before you do it who have done it before. Don't necessarily have an expectation that what you do, everyone else does, that you can just sort of emulate or replicate your model out and everyone will do that. So whilst the industry hasn't changed necessarily, there is a vast degree of difference between the way firms operate and what they need. So it's a very, very tough road to kind of get your product or what your plans are aligned with a market, and of course that then has implications for how sustainable your business is. So I think if you're going to do it well. Be ready for the long haul. Don't muck it up for everybody else. Not to sound too negative on that, but there's been a lot of people who have come and gone from giving it a crack, and it frankly has given startup, particularly in our sphere, startups a bit of a bad reputation. So back yourself and expect some pretty hard work and some hard roads ahead. It's not as easy as it perhaps is made out to be, and perhaps because you're relying on some view that you're going to make a ton of money really quickly from selling the sizzle of the great next new shiny toy. It's really, really hard work. Having said that, it's very, very enjoyable too to do it. So it's my advice would be, I guess, tread warily. If you're going to do it seriously. But perhaps make it also your focus rather than trying to do it as a sideline gig to maintaining your advice and being a software participant as well.
Yeah, and I guess expense as well, right? ongoing expense, and developers, getting resources to actually help build the thing. Simon, what do you think?
Yeah, that's hard, and hard particularly in the Australian market right now, both with regard to availability of resource and cost of resource. But of course, there's offshore options. I won't go into my views necessarily on that, but yeah, there's options out there that I guess think it through and do it well rather than tinker with it. If you're going to do it, do it boots and all.
Simon?
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, who are you building for, right? Like, if you're building software for you and your firm, then brilliant. You then will, the costs are less because you don't have to listen to as many people and build as many things. Security, well, it's as secure as you want it to be for your business. And the product direction is your own. As soon as you start offering your software to the marketplace, you need to be comfortable that your ideas might not necessarily be what everyone wants, and that if you're going to let you need to listen to your clients and to the marketplace, and you may need to build out things that might not necessarily have been what you considered to be the most important things to build. So you've got to have a level of comfort that these things may take a slightly different path to where you initially wanted them to go. But if you want a successful business and to grow, then they might need to be the things that you have to do. And listen to your clients. We as we grow and we continue to grow, we have not stopped listening to our clients, and their feedback is vital to us to continue to build a very relevant product for them. And if you do that, then you have great advocacy. You have a lot of joy working with your clients, and there's nothing better than building functionality and seeing it used as heavily as it does, and firms getting the benefit out of it. We still get a mad kick out of that even to this day, even with some of the littlest things that we build, just the joys and benefits and the feedback that we get from our clients. It's why we keep doing what we do. We just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So I've got one more for you, Simon. Dan, you can join in as well. So, your company has achieved a lot of success in the industry. Yeah, sure. So what do you think sets your product apart from other financial planning technology solutions that are out there on the market?
Look, I think, from a functional perspective, we could debate for days, who's got what, whether it's better or otherwise. I think, the reason we have been successful is to sort of my last point and to some that we've mentioned earlier. We've stayed true to who we are and what we do, and we've just doubled down in our space. It's very tempting to build out other functionality and other bits, and we certainly get that demand as we continue to grow our business. We do one thing well, our clients say to us, well, why don't you do this other thing really well too? So that discipline to sort of stay in our lane and do that really, really well has really, been a strength and a benefit to us, and listening to our clients, even to this day when our firms, recommend improvements and ask for things, we capture those, we capture their names, we capture their practices, and we listen, and we build things that are relevant to our clients, and we get great joy in turning around to them and saying, hey, remember that thing you asked us to build? It's now there. So they're two that really, I think, as far as our mantra in-house is, it's listen to our clients and stay true to what we are. We're comfortable not being everything to everyone. Listen to our clients. I think that's sort of Fitzy. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I guess I'd just add to that from a product point of view. Again, not a functionality point of view, but the way we've gone about business is to, I think, forever be mindful not to be delivering to the, what do they call it, the squeakiest wheel, or like the person shouting the loudest isn't necessarily the one that needs your attention, and what needs to be applied into your product as well. So I think we've done well to maintain our own control of our own destination or destiny, in that we've not been beholden to any one or any organisation to build something specifically for them. So we've had our own license to thrill as we please, and we've really tried to make an effort to build the thing that is not necessarily the most topical, the most shiny, the most whatever, got everyone's attention in the industry, but to just concentrate on those core principles of what we do that the core engine room of an advice firm, and do those things well and build out on those things. I think that's been part of the, if I can say, secret of our success. We've still got a ton of work to do, and we're thoroughly enjoying doing that work. But in terms of where we are now, I'm keen for that to continue. Is that we're just working out what will help. What will be that next iteration in our software that can make an advice business run better? And if we keep true to that, we'll be right. But it's a very, very hard thing to do when there's so much noise going out in the marketplace.
Yeah. I guess the pipeline is never ending really in a tech company. There is no finite timeline from a development perspective. There's always going to be something that's being added. But how do you say no to clients? Do you like saying no to clients? It's and I'm asking because we probably have similar issues. Obviously, not a pure tech company, but saying no is always a tricky thing, and trying to accommodate all needs for everybody is hard. Any thoughts on saying no?
If they, we stay true to what we do, and our clients know what it is we, where we fit in the marketplace, what problems we're trying to solve. They will know that if what they're asking for is outside of that, they'll be expecting an answer. And, it's not always a no, it's always with considered thought. Is this something that we believe will add true value to our product and for our clients? And does it fit in the realms of something that, that we are interested in building and solving for? And, there are some things that further down the track may not necessarily you would look at Worksorted and consider it to be part of something that we would solve. So it's never say never, but you certainly do need to, consider the impact and the priority around those sort of things. I don't think we tend to often hit a hard no, but in a roundabout way, some things just don't fit within our remit, and firms that know who we are and what we do sort of understand that. It won't stop them asking, and that's absolutely fine. But I think they're comfortable with our no's when we do give them.
I think the biggest sin in software, and unfortunately it happens way too often, and it is our number one mantra or philosophy. It's in our philosophy statement that things we will or might do. Never promise the future, and unfortunately in software, particularly where it's a sector renowned for people promising stuff and not delivering it. And so, as Simo says, even though we may not say no, we certainly won't say yes and not do it. That's a far bigger sin. So, and I think now we've settled down on a lot of that. Simon says we're kind of right in our lane. We're stuck in that. And because we've been doing that for so many years, by that I mean, if people ask, we say, yeah, sure, happy to consider. By the way, we've got a full book of stuff going on right now. No suggestion what you're saying will get up. But we just don't say yes unless we've been through that full consideration process and we're building it. Or more the point, we've actually built it already, and then show it as here's something that you asked for. So it's reversing, flipping that around. Because the last thing I want to leave as a legacy is either our product or a software sector that's full of bullshit, full of people who don't tell the truth, right? So as long as you're truthful to your clients, then they come to learn that they can ask, but they won't necessarily get an answer back, a yay or a nay, and that chances are in a few months' time they'll see what they've asked for in product. And that's where, as Simon said before, we're very proud to bring new things to the table for our clients that help them. And people say, Dan or Simon, you guys are genius. How do you work out all of these things that need to be done? And it's a pretty simple formula. We just take ideas from other people, feed it into our pipeline and build them. And we look good. We win. We're not the smart ones. We're just the
I think too, from a pipeline perspective, some of those things in the pipe might sort of rely on, if it's an integration, for example, on that third-party provider actually fitting that into their pipeline, and you might be down the list on their pipeline. So it's like this ongoing kind of pipe across all the providers that needs to be accommodated.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of a domino effect with some of them as well. So the skill, if you like, and the art is making sure that we're building the right bits in the right order, and not getting too far ahead of ourselves.
And doing what you can control. Yeah, that's really the thing. I mean, if the opportunity doesn't seem as exciting to another provider who needs to build their part, then you can't really change that. You can't influence it. So you just motor on with doing what you can do, and you build as much as you can from your side. And if the planets don't align and that project doesn't, proceed to conclusion, then so be it. But we've got enough going on that enough irons in the fire that things will fall into place. And sometimes it takes some more time for another partner to be at that same point where they want to be doing what they need to do. Again, we can't force them. So just we do what we can control, and to the best of our ability. Not much more anyone can do.
All right, final question. What would you like to see in the financial planning industry over the coming years? Obviously, when it comes to tech, and what do you think is going to get in the way? I sort of feel, if you're remaining, if you have the view that you want to remain a closed shop when it comes to being a tech provider, that's, you might struggle with that, given that we want integrations to be happening. So we really do need to be working together to solve those problems. Simon, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%. We need to be sharing our clients, the industry, our profession wants best of breed. They want choice.
Concur with all of that, and would love to see all of that happen. From another aspect, I think we have many hundreds of good clients and some great people who offer advice to their end client. And what I'd like to see is that, and we play a small role in this, is to help, if we can help our advisors to better articulate, better document, be more compliant, understand their businesses better and grow their business, then we will help them engage with more clients. So for me, I think since the GFC, the role of the advisor has been a little bit, tarnished, I suppose, like from a consumer point of view. It's not as, they've gone through hard times in the advice space, and I think consumer sentiment's been against them. So I'd like to see our software playing a role in helping these wonderful people that are our clients deliver better advice, and for that to then grow, to help their businesses grow and flourish, and for a return to the good old, the confidence in your financial advisor, the respect for your financial advisor. Technology plays a little bit of a part in that. So that's what I'd like to see us support. So I agree with all the stuff around data, but what I'd really love to see is that return to not the glory days, but the confidence and respect of the financial advice profession. I'd like to see that come back.
Brilliant. Awesome. Some great insights there, and hopefully some takeaways for you to think about. Thank you to our guests, Dan Fitzgerald and Simon Betchley from Worksorted. And thank you to our audience so much for listening to another episode of Finura Group's podcast, The Game of Fintech. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay up to date. Follow us on LinkedIn or check out our website at www.finuragroup.com.